Welcome to the Once Upon an Island podcast. I'm your host, Wesley, and of course, I'm joined by my co-host,
Mary.
And today, Mary, we're talking about Season 12, Exile Island, and I did eat a meal a few days ago, and oh no, I'm on the ground lying and dying. Mary,
do you want medical. Me to sing for you?
No, get medical.
Don't die, Wesley. Please don't die.
Please stop. Please stop. That was one of the funniest moments of the season. I mean, I feel bad for Bruce, but yeah. So today we're talking about Season 12, Exile Island. Of course, we were, doing our joke reenactment there of Bruce getting medically evacuated and Courtney singing to him after he said, please don't.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I will say, let's just start right off the bat. This season, we watched Tocantins last because we broke chronological order because patrons got to pick whatever season they wanted us to cover last time. Mm-hmm. And we're back on the chronological track. And I do feel like this was an obvious downgrade from Tocantins. Hard to compare, though, because Tocantins happens later, so I can't blame this season for not being as good as Tocantins. But just watching these seasons back-to-back, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it wasn't even as good as, like, some of the other earlier ones, like... I'm going to blank on the names, but that's Pearl okay. Islands.
Oh, yeah. Pearl Islands is a top tier season. And
I'm trying to think of another one. But
we'll rank seasons 6 through 12 at the end of the podcast because those are the ones that you've watched in this chronological order. We'll throw 18 in there as well since we did watch that.
Sure.
But yeah, so we'll cover all that. We're going to cover everything about Exile Island that we found interesting. We're not going to talk about every literal thing that happened in the season. That's going to be kind of a more freeform talk, but we definitely have a lot of points that we're going to talk about. Some include Shane Powers, others include Shane Powers, but mostly I do want to talk about, there's a lot of stuff in the, like, I feel like the final 2 episodes is like the most interesting part of this season.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about you, but that was the most interesting part for me.
No, definitely, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from the point Shane gets voted out, and it's not anything against Shane, it's like once Shane gets voted out, it's like, okay, who's really going to win this thing? And because we got Cirie, we got Danielle, we got Terry and Aras, and Terry's been on a tear with his idol run. Mm-hmm. And Aras has like been keeping Kasai under wraps and under control, but now Kasai is pretty much almost done. So it's like, what is Aras going to do? Is he going to be disposable? But no, that's not really the case. But I do want to start with the twist of the season because it made such an impact, or it seemed to make such an impact, which was Exile Island. Mm-hmm. And this is like the first season long version of this because we had seen this for one episode in Palau, which is kind of just like thrown together at the last second, it felt like.
Right.
But here, what did you think about Exile Island?
I thought it was pretty effective in this season. I think that it came into play with strategy. People were like, well, who should we send? And who do we want to be weakened for the next immunity? And, the idol, who has it, who doesn't have it, all that came into play too. A lot throughout the season. So I think it was really effective. And I think it was something interesting that they added that worked well. It
was definitely the thematic center of the season.
Yes.
Was Exile Island with that big skull, which I really liked the big skull.
I do too. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And I like I don't really notice the snuffers as much, but his snuffer this season was a literal skull. And I just got to say this, like the Tribal Council set, the snuffer, like all the thematically, the art department knocked this out of the park, in my opinion, which I don't think I normally compliment the art department, but here they really did a great job with all their design because the Tribal Council set's all 100% fake, which is interesting coming off of Guatemala where like they were using literal Mayan ruins.
Right.
And temples.
Well, it was really cool. I mean, I think you could safely assume it was a set.
Because it's like so perfectly like how it works for tribal.
Right. But it was really cool. And I liked it. It was very different from most Tribal Council sets.
And like when they walk up into tribal, Jeff's like ominously standing over them.
Right.
And I'm like, I mean, like it's like a little cheesy, but it's like, it's the right amount of cheese for Survivor, in my opinion. So, yeah, I do think the twist though of Exile Island.
It wasn't too much.
It was fun. But once the idol got found by Terry in episode 4, it kind of became it was just kind of used to like send people there to weaken them, I guess. But
and get them out of play for a while.
It kind of like, I think it fell flat once the idol was found. And I'm not a proponent of they should have added more idols to the island, but I do think that there is a balance somewhere in there that I don't think they've quite struck yet before they went all in on this island.
So what else would you suggest that they do though?
That's a great question.
Because I liked it because you didn't know if anyone had the idol. I mean, you assumed after. I know, but as a player, you weren't for sure. So I think it was still interesting enough to keep going with.
The obvious answer says they should have had an idol in the pre-merge and idol in the merge, but the problem this season is that there's only 16 players, and what they introduced here was actually the first implementation of the super idol. And the super idol, you can't have 2 of those in the game, or if you do, they have to finish a lot sooner than final. What was it? Final 4 is the last time it could be used.
Yes.
So if there's 2 super idols, I think you can only go to final 5, because super idol, after the votes are ready, you can play it. Which, by the way, I have some questions on that in terms of how you can use it, but we'll talk about it when we get to the final 4. But yeah, I don't know. Like, so that's a great question. I think had they done what they did in Token Chains, and even here they did it like twice, but only twice, was sending 2 people to exile.
From opposite tribe? Well,
yeah. I think if they had done that, they did it twice this season where they sent 2 people, once in the pre-merge, once in the after the merge. But I think that would have been interesting had they just gone all in on that idea of like, let's send 1 person from each tribe to exile. And even when the season started, when instead of sending just Misty from the losing tribe, they should have sent 3 people. Like the team that finished first on that first challenge is all fine, but 3 people from 3 different tribes on exile. I know that sounds extreme, but I'm saying stick to that. I think it would have been more interesting all season, because even if when the idol gets found, you at least get these interpersonal relationships happening, instead of like Bruce being like, well, it's raining, so I can't look for the idol, and that's like the whole segment for the episode. Yeah,
that's true. That could have been more interesting if there were more people there.
But I'm open to other ideas. I mean, obviously we have seasons coming up that I'm not super familiar with, seasons 13 through 16. Like, I can't just rattle off information about them. I know stuff about them, but I don't, especially with how Exile Island's utilized in them. So I don't know what the perfect version of this.
I think my only issue with what you just said was, sure, if it's opposing tribes, that could be interesting, because then they are trying to maybe form a relationship, and maybe that'll pay off for them later. But after that, I think if you have to send 2 people, then it's going to automatically just be whoever's on the bottom. And so, which could be interesting, but then you have...
we saw that a lot with Terry after the merge.
Right. Yeah. So basically you're just always going to send the bottom people there, and they're not going to have any chance to kind of work their way into the tribe. And
we saw in Token Chains how basically they did that. Once the merge hit, only 1 person went. So, and I think it was a lot more interesting in that season. And it's the same idea. I mean, Token Chains only had the 1 idol. Actually, sorry, they had 1 at each camp. So 2 idols. They were normal idols. But once those idols were found, it was done. But Exile Island was still interesting with who they sent, because like Taj went, and you know, she had the whole love visit with Eddie George. Coach went and was, you know, having his whole moment, we'll call
journey.
It. Yeah. Which, by the way, that is a hilarious thing for the coach video. But yeah, it's like, so I'm trying not to compare the season, say, oh, they should have done like Token Chains, because obviously that's 6 seasons later. But I am sitting here pontificating, I guess. How could Exile Island this season been more interesting beyond when Terry found the idol?
Right.
And I think my personal solution would be, do what you did twice this season, but do it all season where you have 2 people going. But I do understand after the merge how sending 2 people will probably just be the 2.
It could. I just think it could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be not very interesting if it was always the people on the bottom.
It's just unlike other seasons where like Exile Island is something that exists in the season, which we'll see next season as we watch at the end of the reunion of this season, they say next time we're going to Cook Islands. They don't even tell you what the twist is going to be, which is probably for the best, so that people don't find out right away, because that would have been like months long of discussion, because I think this was a spring season, so this ends in May, so the next season doesn't even start till September. People talking for 3 or 4 months about the race twist would have been hard.
Bad for business.
Yeah, they do say Exile Island's returning though in Cook Islands, so we'll see if they make any improvements to it that season. But I do know the Super Idol returns, so no matter what you think about that, it is happening at least one more time, which has me wanting to ask, what did you think about the Super Idol this season?
I really wish it would have been played at some point. It was such a factor in that people assumed Terry had it and made their votes according to that assumption,
which we clearly saw in the final 4, because that's why Terry didn't get a single vote against him the only time he was eligible.
Right. And he still he wasn't really eligible though because he had the idol.
Well, I'm saying the only time that they could have cast a vote like on like they, like they
he
weren't
didn't have
allowed
immunity.
to,
right?
Because he always had the necklace.
Well,
but here they were allowed to. Obviously, they knew what the repercussions would have been.
It was the last two. Because Danielle got it and Aras got it.
You're right. You're right. Because final, yeah, I understand.
So I like the super idol. I like the fact that you could use it after the votes are read. I like that it was a factor in the game, even though it wasn't played. Mm-hmm. But it did seem to be a bit too much power. Almost.
Oh, it's definitely overpowered. There's a reason this gets changed in a couple seasons.
Yeah.
And we will see it again next season. This is one of the few things I do know about Cook Islands is that Super Idol exists next season, and you don't know it yet, but there is a man who will come up with planned voodoo on how to actually get rid of it. Because this season, there's no, like, they don't ever have a chance to get rid of it. The only time they could actually legitimately flush that idol was at Final Four when Terry was eligible to be voted out. And at that point, it was a good past Final Five, you had immunity.
No.
Final Four, yes. Final Four, Aras won immunity. Final Three, Danielle won immunity.
I keep forgetting
but his idol was only good through Final Four. So, like, literally, he won immunity every time up until Final Four where he had the idol as a safety net. So there was never, like, how do we flush this idol? Because Terry wasn't aligned with anyone that they could trick him into, like, giving his idol to someone else. They kind of played with the idea at the end. Like, what if you give it to Danielle and she could play it? But, like, we'll talk about that when we talk about the last few episodes specifically. But yeah, like I feel for the players. Like, what were they supposed to do? Like, he has the super idol and there's nothing they can do about it.
Right.
Except for win immunity, and that wasn't happening.
I think it might have been more interesting if somebody else had found it besides Terry, because Terry was so
Terry
mentally
was OP.
Strong and yes, and he himself won so many challenges that he never used it. So yeah, if somebody else had won it and needed it, it could have been more interesting.
Yeah, and it would have been and that would have led to a lot of like, okay, how do we vote this person out? How do we, like, let's say for example, Austin or Sally or Nick from Lamina who came into the merge all got eliminated back to back. Let's say one of them had the idol, like let's say Sally just had it, for example. Like, would have been a question of like, well, how? Okay, well, Terry has immunity, so we can't get him, and we are pagonging this tribe. How, like, can we get Sally maybe? But like, Sally is the idol, so how do we get the idol out of her pocket? Because we know she's going to play it. So no matter what, Sally is safe for one trialable, no matter how you play the votes. But you don't want Sally and Terry to have the power. So you eliminated You eliminated Nick and Austin, and you know for a fact Terry and Sally, two people, are probably voting with each other. So you have to split the votes. Yeah, basically have to split the votes. But that idea has never been proposed in the entire of Survivor through 12 seasons, really splitting the votes.
A split votes never happened?
Not because of idols is what I'm saying. Because we do see at the final six, the 3-2-1 split that Cirie set up pretty brilliantly in a very cool strategic move, but never because of an idol. Right. So, because we even see even like season 20 when like Rob's, and Heroes vs. Villains, Rob is like, I know you haven't seen the season in a while, but Rob is like, they're like talking about voting out. I think this is the tribal council where Tyson goes home. I think they're talking about getting rid of Parvati or Russell. I forgot which one. Because they know one of them has the idol, and Rob's like, let's just split the votes. It's simple. It's easy. It'll tie. Then on the tie, if they don't play the idol, or even if they do, like, we'll revote. It doesn't matter. Well, we always win no matter what on this split vote. But Tyson's like thinking about something else completely and screws it up. And that's as late as season 20. Here we're in season 12. Right. The likelihood of this being screwed up is possible, especially when you have people like Courtney and Shane on your tribe.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's just my thought. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen. Just saying it would have taken like multiple Ciries, I think, to make it happen. Multiple like brilliant people out there. So yeah. Anything else on the Super Idol, or you have anything else?
I didn't like that. I didn't like any of the idols from this season though. So
that was the only one, wasn't it?
No, I mean, sorry. The shrunken head or the immunity idol for the tribe was the 3 shrunken heads.
Yeah, you didn't like those?
I didn't like them. They're creepy.
Yeah, I think they're pretty cool and they totally thematically fit in, but I could understand just from like a general point of view, he wouldn't like them. So I do want to talk about another twist that happens that pretty much is one and done. One episode and it's gone. The 4 tribes. We start with 4 tribes for the first time ever.
Oh yeah, that was so weird.
But the cast is only 16 people and they're split up by not only their sex, but also their age.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an older men, older women, younger men, younger women tribe. But like clear as day, the older women are going to get like decimated. Like that was like guaranteed one of them. Like the challenge was not built for anybody to win it. I don't remember the first immunity, but I remember thinking the older women don't stand a chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did seem a little unfair.
But then again, we saw how the younger women lost that very first challenge of the season, so it's not unheard of. But still, the challenge was definitely like, yeah, this is this is almost designed for a woman to go home. But I'm like, only 16 people to do 4 tribes. This is a season where they should have just broken and done 20.
Yeah, if you were starting off with 4 tribes, you'd think that they would. You think that they would,
so that they could go beyond the one episode. They have 4 tribes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of ridiculous.
It's almost like they had...
Even then, they could have gone to 2 episodes, I think, with 4 tribes. Because even if the woman lost again, they'd just be down to 2.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think they should have done 2 episodes of 4 tribes. And if the older women lose again, obviously you merge. But I think though, if it's like, okay, let's say the older women don't lose in the second episode. Let's say like the younger men, older men, who cares? Another tribe other than the older women lose in the second episode. Well, good.
Keep it for a third episode.
Let's... I'm kind of on board with let's ride this out until there's only 2, until one of the tribes has only 2 people, and then we do this the merge, or not the merge, but the switch.
Well, you can't be that ambiguous about it though, because you have to plan the challenges and things like that. But I think they definitely could have done it one more episode. It really was like, well, what is the point? And
I will say that next season they do the 4 tribe format again, and they have 20 people that time. And this is just from my brief looking at it. I don't actually remember the events of the season, but I was just briefly looking because I definitely remember them doing 4 tribes again. And they do it in Cook Islands, and they do wait 2 episodes to do the switch.
Well, that's good.
But there they have 20 people. They could, so it's gonna be, I feel like next season when we watch them, be like, once again, we could have waited longer because. Sure. But I do understand the trying to edit 4 tribes, and like we have 42 minutes, and Survivor here is kind of conscious of that.
They didn't even tell you the names of the tribes. Like they had names, but Jeff never said them. And I don't even know if they might have been on
older men, younger women. Yeah,
on screen they just said that. I think it showed you their tribe flags. I think I remember thinking, oh, is that their names? And then being like, oh, they actually have a tribe name. But it was just weird.
So this is one of the last seasons I watched live. Like I think Cook Islands was the last season I watched live before I got a job, and it interrupted me being able to watch Survivor. And then I went in the Navy, and I didn't watch the show again until 32. So between 13 and 32 was like this huge gap of time. I didn't watch the show until I went back and obviously rewatch seasons now. But my point is that I do remember at the time, like, okay, so if you think about this real time, not like in a binge watch, the 4 tribes I feel like was part of, they could sell you 4 buffs in the pre-merge. I mean, in the preseason. And going into the season, you don't know that that's only the last 1 episode. So you get super fans who are like, oh, I got 4 buffs. In reality, like after 1 episode, 2 of those buffs are nothing.
Obsolete.
Because I think it's the purple tribe becomes Kasaya, which I think was the older women originally was the purple tribe. And then the orange tribe is Lamina. And I without me double checking, which I can totally do and I will do now I'm talking about it. But I think the orange tribe originally was the older men. Like it was older. I got it.
So the young men were Viveros. The older men were Lamina. The young women were Bayonetta, and the older women were Kasaya.
Okay. So you're saying it was the younger men was the orange?
I don't know what colors they were.
Or you're saying who was originally Lamina though?
Lamina was originally older men.
Older men. So they basically took both older tribes and merged the younger tribes into them. Because otherwise, I think like the younger women were blue. I remember that. So I knew they weren't the tribe. But the younger men, I forgot what color they were. And I am looking right now to see if I can find out. But yeah. But the point is that they could sell you 4 buffs. And you better believe that's a factor. And it's going to be it's probably a factor again for Cook Islands when they have 4 tribes. Lame. Well, and it's interesting because in Palau, they didn't have a merge, even though they totally could have called it a merge when Stephanie came over, because they had a buff for the merged tribe that they did sell online, but obviously never appeared in the show because Stephanie just became Karor in Palau.
Now that's kind of cool though, because that's not planned.
Oh no, and I like that, but I'm saying it's kind of weird that like there they just went with like what was the better storytelling decision, whereas here it was like to me it felt more like here's a cool thing we can advertise in terms of 4 tribes and how they're split up, but then immediately they undercut it but they can sell you for, but I don't know. It felt definitely more like a marketing decision here.
Yeah, maybe that was
That's
kind
my
of
point.
like, oh, hey, what if we do older men, older women, younger women? And then someone's like, well, that's not really fair for the older people.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Then they need a fair chance. And like, okay, but let's do it for one episode to get people like hooked or something. I don't know.
I got it pulled up here. The younger men were green. It was like a bright
Okay.
green. It was, yeah, just like you said. So Kasaya was purple, Lamina's orange, which I do believe are the easier names to say. Though I guess if I heard these other tribes all season, I would have changed my tune. I think it's, I want to say Bayonetta. That's like the name of a video game. But it's Bayoneta for the blue tribe, for the younger women.
Mm-hmm.
And then Viveros, Viveros for the green tribe.
Right.
So, yeah. Remember watching this real time, and at the time I was a teenager and my parents did not buy me buffs. But I do remember thinking, oh wow, there's a lot of buffs this season. And that was like, 15, 16. So
I didn't even, I guess until recently, I didn't even think about the buffs being a thing that you buy.
It's like one of the most popular things. I remember during Winters at War, and don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything Winters at War for those listening. They do eventually switch from the 2 tribes to 3 tribes. And if you recall, and they had that green tribe, and I was like, I don't have the money to buy the green tribe buff this week. I'm going to wait till next week. Well, they were all sold out after 1 week.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they just never sold them again. And I will never own a green Winters of War buff. Not that that's like a life. I'm not like, oh no, my life's your own, but I'm just saying like they are popular. Is my point.
Yeah, I get it now.
And that's a unique season. I get that.
No, I get it now. I'm just like,
yeah.
For some reason back then, I wouldn't have imagined it as being a thing.
I do think there's totally a difference between watching these seasons week by week and watching them live and binge watching them, because I feel like a season like Vanuatu benefits so much from a binge, because those first like 4 or 5 episodes is like so fast, but you don't think about, okay, what if I only watch this episode this week? How would I feel for the next 6 or 7 days waiting for the next episode? Because like, and I say that because Vanuatu, like once you get past that 5th episode or 4th episode, it's like gangbusters up through the end. But here, it's like the same thing. It's like, imagine if we, and I'm kind of cutting to the final 4 here, but imagine if we ended the week on Cirie and Danielle doing the fire, and then we don't see what happens.
That was a cool editing choice.
It's cool, but then in real time, you're like, I am now on the edge of my seat.
No, but I think it was a really good choice, because it makes you think about the show throughout the week, which
and it
is
helps
the point.
Burn some time in the finale where they only otherwise have 3 people. Right. Which is so weird, by the way. They hadn't done a final 3 in the last episode since, I want to say, Australian Outback, and they haven't done it since. So I don't know why they planned the season to do that. It felt weird to do. But yeah, no, I mean, it's cool, and it's totally an editing decision. Did not feel like this was planned to be the end of the episode, because had, let's say, Danielle or Cirie just been voted out, that would have been the end. They were not going to like be like, everyone goes to vote and Jeff's like, I'll reveal the votes, to be continued. No, it was because there was a fire making challenge. They did it.
Of course.
Yeah. Totally an unplanned, in my opinion, to be continued. But yeah, no, I agree. In a binge watch, it's cool. But I remember watching this week by week and being like, are you kidding me? Because it's like this has to be like the first time where we end an episode where somebody doesn't go home. Yeah. Like by medical evacuation, quitting, whatever, like just doesn't go home. Nobody is out. So
yeah,
it's a little different. Before, I don't want to get deep in the final 4 and 3 yet, because I do think there's a lot to talk about there, but let's talk about the guy who goes out at final 5, Shane. Shane is kind of the Judd, the coach of the season. What do you think about Shane, Mary?
I mean, he is not someone I would want to actually play Survivor with. I would imagine. He was just psychotic. Like, legitimately would make me concerned to be around him.
People on, I think it was, I forgot, so don't quote me here, but on the Patreon, people were like, I think somebody said, I wonder how Mary will react to Shane. And I said, we were 3 episodes in. I'm like, we're 3 episodes in and she already doesn't like him, is what I said.
Probably because I was so mean to Coach last time.
You are. Coaches.
And I like Coach better than Shane.
Coach and Tocantins is perfect. You know what? Shane, yeah, definitely felt like Shane was like when we start the season, he's like, I smoke. How many packs a day did he say?
I don't even remember. I think he said 3 packs a day.
It was enough where I went online and looked. Or I didn't know online. I've never bought a pack of cigarettes. I guess showing my addictions not my addiction. I don't know. My point is, I didn't know how many cigarettes were in a pack. And he said how many packs he smoked. And I think we did the math. And it was like, okay, if he sleeps 8 hours a day, that's a big assumption. Then he's smoking. I forgot.
It's like every 15 minutes he would have a new cigarette or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
what it was. It was every 15 minutes there's a new cigarette based on the math. Assuming that what he told us, and we assumed he slept 8 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So a couple of assumptions there, but it was like, yeah, he smoked a new cigarette every 15 minutes.
A lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
And I cannot believe I don't know, like, who said, yeah, sure, it's fine for him to come on. He's a chain smoker and he's not going to have, that'll be interesting TV to watch him go in withdrawals. I don't know.
And then when they have that reward challenge and they go to the village and he gets a cigarette and he's like, oh, this is a bad idea, as he's smoking the cigarette.
Yeah. Well, and what was interesting is in his, at the very end of when they're doing that walk where they gather the torches or whatever, and they get their little montage.
The rites of passage.
Part of his montage was him being like ridiculous and smoking the cigarette. And I'm like, is that?
That's how they want you to remember.
That's how
him.
you want to remember Shane. Is this really goofy, terrible guy?
There's so many Shane moments this season. Like, I think it was like episode 3 where he like sits on his little like spot in camp, and he's like, and I'm paraphrasing because I do not have all Shane's quotes memorized, but he definitely like screams like, "This is my spot. I want to sit here." Yeah. And everyone's like, "What is going on with this guy?" It's like the first like huge sign this guy might be a nutball. Like, they're like, we heard about the smoking, but that was it. That was the first like Shane moment, because we have other moments where he's chafing and he doesn't know that he's chafing, or he doesn't know how to explain it. So he goes up to her, he's like, "Hey, I need you to come look at my crotch." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take off my pants and you come look at it. It's all like red." And so Cirie is such a good sport. She could have taken this and been offended, and for good reason, by the way, had she been, because Shane did not like really ask. He's just kind of like, "I'm doing this. I need you. I know you're a nurse. I need you to look at it." Well,
he did walk behind the shelter and then dropped his pants.
For everyone else.
Right. And then kept calling her to come over.
Yeah. He just went behind the shelters, dropped his pants like, "Cirie, can you come over here?" And so this is why everyone loves Cirie. She's such a good sport, and she's fun to be around, clearly. Because she, by the way, does a great job integrating herself from the older women's tribe into all these other people coming into her camp beautifully, as we see. But yeah, so she goes behind the shelter, and she's like, "It looks like you've been chafing because you're saying wet pants all day." Like jeans, I think is what he's wearing. Which is, so that moment is like, only Shane, right?
Right.
But then once again, we get an only Shane moment that connects to that moment, because when Bruce is being medically evacuated, Shane's hanging up his pants because he doesn't want them getting wet, because if he gets them wet, he's going to chafe himself. So he's medically evacuating Bruce with the medical team, which I'm surprised they didn't have enough people to put Bruce on the. Yeah. Shane has to help them, but he's pantsless. He's like, "Oh, we're doing that. We're doing that now?" They're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm not wearing pants." And apparently nobody told him to put on pants. So nope. just Shane things. Shane.
I mean, I think that it really wasn't that bad. I feel like the two things that really concerned me were the fake BlackBerry that he had, and also when he got mad at Courtney and he said he was going to go to her apartment and kill her.
Yes. Okay.
Like, so that was just too far.
BlackBerry is like funny as a moment. It does kind of, I don't know if this is for a fact or not. I don't have all the behind the scenes info. In season 1, there's a guy named Greg, and he pretends that a coconut is a phone. He does it as a bit, but also he does it to keep himself entertained. Shane with the BlackBerry came across more like he has an addiction, but it's like so deep in the season, it's weird that that's when the BlackBerry comes up. It's not like in the first few episodes.
Right.
So
it was just weird to me. I don't know. I guess the rock thing was also weird. Yeah, it was just like, I would genuinely be scared if I was around this guy at camp. And I am very impressed that everyone else, such as Aras and Courtney and
kept
Cirie,
him around till final 5.
Yeah, well, kept him around because it was smart, because nobody was going to vote for him at the end, to keep him for as long as possible. He was definitely a target that people wanted out. But no, I'm just impressed with how like they smooth things over with him. Whenever they would turn on him, they were able to explain it. Oh, you were way up there in the woods, and this happened like 5 minutes before tribal.
Because he took such great offense to a lot of things.
Oh my goodness. It's like having a child around. And his relationship with his son was weird. I don't know. The whole thing was just weird to me.
Well, the relationship with his son, weird is not the word I'd use. It's more like less father and son. It felt like more like they were just like best friends.
Yeah, that's weird.
And that's not really how it's supposed to be when you're parent and child. There's a reason one person's the authority.
It felt like the son was the parent.
It felt like a lot of ways they were equals, and they definitely should not have been, especially because the son's like, what, 10, 12? Yeah. I don't know the exact age. He clearly loved his son a lot, and that's like one of the
that's one of
things
his
about him.
redeeming factors.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, the incident with Courtney was like, oh my gosh. Okay, this one I think I have better memorized, but so if I recall correctly, talking with Courtney, and were they talking strategy? That's the part I forgot.
They were the only two at camp, and he was basically saying, "You better not turn on me."
Yeah, and she's like being her regular Courtney goofy self, and Shane's like, "I'm serious. Don't do it. If you do, I'm gonna go to your and I am paraphrasing. I'm gonna go to your crappy apartment. I'm gonna kill you, and then I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna drink a beer." And she's like, I don't have a crappy apartment. Like, Courtney, you've missed the point.
Yeah.
He's like, how am I supposed to know that? Stop being so dramatic.
Yeah, he's always telling people to stop being dramatic.
Yeah, he's definitely telling people stop being so dramatic. He's like, he's like, so you're so insane. And it's like, bro, the pot calling the kettle black here. Yeah.
For sure.
So Shane is definitely a taste. You have it's definitely, I feel like Judd is the same way from Guatemala. Like, if you like Judd, you like Judd, but if you don't like Judd, you don't like him. Same with Coach.
Sure.
I love Judd. I love Coach. Shane, I mean, like, he's okay, my opinion. And clearly you don't care much for him.
No, I know they always want to have one kind of off character to help with the drama.
Definitely a wild card.
Yeah. A wild card for sure.
Judd as the wild card was great, though.
Judd, I appreciate Judd more than Shane. I appreciate Coach more
if you're listening to this podcast and you have not watched Guatemala, I encourage you. Well, first off, watch Vanuatu, because I feel like you probably also haven't watched that season. But that's just an assumption. Most people skip Vanuatu. Vanuatu top tier past episode 4. But anyways, no, Judd in Guatemala is amazing. So if you think Shane's hilarious, Judd is way better, because Shane gets voted out and he gets a little snippy, but
and he's like, mad until the very end.
Pales in comparison to Judd.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's different. It's a different type of
it's totally different personalities.
drama.
Like, I don't feel like Judd would ever go crazy on me like Shane does. Like, Shane snaps.
Yes.
Judd only snapped at the very end when he got turned on, and it wasn't even like snapped like in a way I just felt like Judd was mad. I feel like Shane was like definitely a little crazy. Like, no cameras around, he's a little crazy.
Judd might have some anger issues, but if he blows up, it's because he legitimately feels like he might legitimately have a reason, versus Shane is like no reason at all. He'll just flip. And
if Coach gets turned on, he pretends like he doesn't really care. He's like, it's the warrior way, and we know, but Coach is really hurting deep down inside.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm never afraid that I would never be afraid of Coach physically hurting me, or even of Judge physically hurting me. I would be afraid of Shane physically hurting me.
Yeah, the Shane in this season is what we mean, because I do have a fun note. Shane, as of 2020, so it's 2021 now at the time of this recording. Well, actually, this is gonna be posted in 2022, so we'll pretend we recorded this 2021 at the very end. Yeah, so Shane's 8 years sober as of 2020.
Oh, cool.
So that's the update. I'm gonna assume that as of 2021 he's still sober, but I cannot assume that. But as of 2020 he was 8 years sober. So this season was 06, so not until 6 years after the season. But we all grow as people. People change.
People do
can
grow.
Get better.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
I do want to mention, though, there's an unseen incident on this season that involves cocaine.
Oh.
So we're going to talk about that because it relates to Shane.
Of course it does.
Of course it does. Well, okay. So in an Entertainment Weekly interview with him, they ask, what's something that will blow fans' minds that happened out there in your season but never made it to TV? Shane says, Aras and I were showering, quote unquote, at the beach, and a kilo of cocaine washed up at my feet. I ran into the woods with it and was going to bury it and think about what could be done with it, which I like because his initial reaction. Because in Shane this season, I totally could see that like being his initial reaction, being like, is this cocaine? He just like grabs it and runs. I was never a fan of cocaine in my personal life, is what he says, as I always considered using cocaine when he drank was cheating. Soak that in for a bit. But I had thoughts of maybe rubbing it on our gums before challenges to give us energy.
Oh my God.
This is what he said. That idea was quickly squashed. Production was on me pretty quickly. I'm trying to imagine the radio call on that. Anyone from senior production, Shane has a kilo of coke on him and is running to the woods, and he thought of what to do. So that's what he says. Basically, he found it and they took it. But he did run into the woods with it, and what his idea was to bury it. So I bet you if there's no camera around, like I do know on Survivor, if you go to the bathroom by yourself, no camera goes with you. Mm-hmm. But he was with Aras showering at the beach. I bet you Shane was by himself. He might have even gotten away with it. Who knows how many episodes that would have gone for someone caught on that Shane was doing cocaine?
Oh my goodness.
Imagine the Shane of the season doing a drug that he should definitely not. First off, no one should be doing, but especially Shane. Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. I just can't.
This is Shane without the cocaine. So I just thought that was very interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, well, I think we should talk about Bruce for a little bit because I really did like him a lot, and I was really sad that he was medevac this season because, I don't know, I just thought it would have been much more interesting if he stayed around for a couple more episodes. I don't think he would have made it. Like, I don't think he would have won or anything because he did seem to kind of be on the bottom of the Exile Alliance, but he was really likable. He worked really hard around camp. I don't think he was a major threat in the challenges, so I don't think they would have wanted him out immediately because of that.
He was so highly regarded, too, in the first few episodes as being like somebody who would really boost the tribe and help them with challenges.
Well, in his opinion, yes. And then the other tribe thought he was... In his own tribe, I think he was more pandered to or, made to think that he was doing more than he was. He was very helpful. And
the original
I think,
Lamina.
Yeah, I think they maybe did take advantage of him a little bit as far as, it's just Bruce, let him make the fire, let him get the wood or whatever. Mm-hmm. He wants to do
Let
that.
him be a workhorse.
Right. And we'll just kind of sit here and be like, oh, yeah, Bruce. And there was even a time, I forget what it was, but Shane specifically lying to him about, how when Shane and Aras, after the merge, tried to make him seem like he was the leader. Yeah. So that he'd be more of a target.
So that he wouldn't flip on them.
Well, so that he wouldn't flip on them. But basically, they were still making all the decisions. And that made me feel bad for him. He was just like this sweet old man with his little rock garden. And I don't know. I just liked him.
It was smart gameplay on their part, though.
Sure, it was smart, but it was mean.
It was also, but it was smart gameplay that they had to do it. But also, it's bad gameplay because they put themselves in that position where he felt like he might need to flip because he didn't feel respected by his own tribe.
Right. Well, how do you do that? Because you have a tribe that is larger in number than the other tribe. Mm-hmm. And you just know somebody's on the bottom. How do you, I think they all did a good job of sticking, as we see, they all did a good job of sticking together for a long time. Yeah. So they did a good job of making the people on the bottom feel like they weren't on the bottom and make them feel included. So sure, that is good strategy.
He had his rock garden. He has his pencil. Mm-hmm. He's doing his drawings. He's very artistic.
Yeah, he was really good. He was hopefully because he was an art teacher, but yeah, he was really good. And he was just kind of like a calming presence. And I don't know, I just liked him. I thought he was super sweet. I wish he would have stayed around longer because if he hadn't been medevaced, who knows what would have happened during that challenge that maybe Terry would have lost earlier. Maybe.
But I do want to mention before we get into that, because yes, it's a very good subject of Terry and what would have happened. The personal items though, with Bruce having a pencil and Courtney having her fire, what was it called? Like fire batons? I forgot what they're called. She was dancing.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But it's like, it gives you more insight into who they are as a person, seeing these personal items. And I'm not like an advocate that like everything from old school Survivor needs to come back. But this just, even at this time, had been kind of like, we've like pushed this aside, these personal items. Like,
I was kind of surprised when I saw them. Like, I forgot that was even a thing that you could win as a reward, because that's so rarely
the first handful of seasons they mattered. Like, remember this guy in season 5 brought a skateboard onto a beach. And this backstory behind that is that he tried bringing something else, but they basically made him bring a skateboard because other things other people brought. But that's not time. We're not talking about Thailand. We're talking about this season. Yeah, it's almost like around Amazon, maybe Pearl Islands. Like definitely Pearl Islands, because they weren't allowed to have any personal items because they just were just thrown into the game with their clothes in their back. Mm-hmm. Like personal items kind of been like a long gone thing, and they were brought back here. And I think it gives you insight into who they are as people.
Yeah. It is interesting because Terry gets an American flag. Well, not everyone gets it. It's only whoever won that reward.
It was the group that won.
Right. So it was Terry, Sally, Courtney, and Bruce. Because Sally got a journal, which you see later. I'm not sure how.
Is that what Bruce was drawing in?
No, because Bruce got his art supplies.
Okay.
Bruce got art supplies, but Sally got a journal and a pen. So there were 2 pens and 2 books. Because later, at the very end, Danielle is using paper and a pen to write down who she thinks would vote for people, and they show that. And I, for a split second, I was like, "Where'd she get paper and a pen?" And I was like, "Oh, she probably took Sally's or Bruce's."
I mean, that's how JT wrote his love letter to Russell Hantz in season 20. But the thing is, like, the paper and pen, like I feel like the paper and pen or paper and pencil is like such an underrated like thing to have on the show. Like every time it comes up in the show, it's like such a big thing. I know you haven't seen season 4 yet, but in season 4, it's a thing that makes a huge impact on the season. Here, it's more of like more insight into a person. It doesn't make a huge impact, but something we do remember.
Right.
Season 20, of course, the love letter. And then, but it's funny because we get to like a modern season, and I don't want to date this podcast too much, but in season 39, Island of the Idols, you have Boston Rob and Sandra there as mentors, and one player goes to the island, and basically they're like, they give this person a piece of paper, and they're like, here you go. This is a great power in the game. And they're like, it's a blank piece of paper. And they're like, yeah, but it comes with a pencil. Have you ever seen a pencil on Survivor? And they ask it in such a way where the answer is supposed to be like, no, I haven't seen a pencil on Survivor. But like, Rob's been on multiple seasons where there have been pencils on Survivor. And to be fair, the one in Heroes vs. Villains was also a personal item. Kind of gets glossed over there. But yeah, personal items, I do think that not every season needs them, but I do think that they should happen time to time.
Yeah.
Because they give us insight into people. And
like
insight into people in a way that is genuine. It's like, this is who this person is. It's not like we're not editing in a backstory or anything. You know,
right.
This is just who they are. So
yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I'm on board. It's too bad Bruce got medevaced, but as you said, Bruce getting medevaced saved Terry's butt for an episode. He didn't have to do a challenge, and because he went on to win every single immunity up through the final, up until he got to the final 4, where he loses the last 2. Thankfully, he had the super idols we talked about earlier, but for himself, thankfully. But yeah, it's like, had Bruce not been voted out or not been medevaced, like, would Terry have won another immunity? Probably. I mean, he just got done winning the reward.
Right.
Yeah, he wins a bunch of rewards a season, so. What a boss, by the way, at his age.
He is. I was really sad. Not really sad. I was really sad when Cirie left, but I was kind of sad that Danielle didn't pick Terry. I don't know. I had such mixed emotions about it. I guess we can talk about that one.
Oh, we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest decisions, I feel like, of the season, or one of the biggest things. But yeah. Okay, so we've gotten through Bruce. I do want to mention this before we get in the final 4, the car curse comes up here again this season. This is the next to last time we'll see the car curse happen. It's so, I wish I never told you.
Challenge happen.
Yeah, I wish I never told you, but to be fair, it gets brought up in like season 8. It gets brought up in season 11. It gets brought up again here. I think it was during the reunion, actually, is when Jeff says it here. He doesn't say it during the season, but yeah, the car curse, like...
Yeah, as soon as Terry won, I was like, well, I guess Terry's not winning this season.
You win the car, you lose the season. With the exception, the only exception being Amber, but Amber didn't win it. She was gifted it. And so that's how the car curse, if you win the car, you're doomed to lose the game. And funnily enough, Boston Rob was gifted a car Marquesas. So he loses in All-Stars, but like, was that a result of the Marquesas car? And then he loses in Heroes vs. Villains. Was that a result of the All-Stars car? It's all conspiracy. No, but the car curse will not come up next season, because next season they just do it as a fan favorite thing. There's no challenge for it. But season 14, man, I'm looking forward to us watching it, because it is a very dramatic series of events. It's a story in and of itself, the car in season 14.
So you have said.
Oh, yeah.
You built it up, and I feel like it's going to be this epic thing, and we're going to watch it, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But I will find out.
I definitely have not oversold it.
Okay.
It's one of the major storylines of the season. But but here it's like, here it exists, and here Terry wins it. It's like kind of presents in a way where it's like half the tribe doesn't get to know that there was even a car challenge.
Right.
Didn't like Terry win it and then find out he won a car or something?
No, remember they did the reward challenge and Terry and
everyone split
Sally,
into two groups.
Was it Terry and Sally and somebody else?
I gotta look this up.
Right. Well, basically, they were split into two groups. Terry's group wins. So they're like, oh, you win the reward.
Was this the Bruce, Courtney, Sally, Terry group?
I don't remember.
Fight for your life or eat.
Being there.
I'm just looking at the
no,
reward.
that's an immunity, isn't it?
Well, wasn't it a group of 4 people? Or was it a group of 3?
I really felt like it was a group of 3. But I could be wrong.
Courtney, Danielle, Terry?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to figure out which episode happened in. So Courtney, Danielle, Terry.
Yes, they win the reward. And there is some reward that they do actually get.
Yeah.
But then the other group gets sent away.
They're like, okay, bye, back to camp.
Right. And like, we're going to take you to your reward. But then Jeff's like, well, actually, there's another challenge.
Here's a trick.
Right. And they're like, oh, okay. And this challenge is for a car. And so
the show never addresses whether the other people find. I mean, I'm assuming they found out.
Obviously.
But it like never gets brought up after this.
No one's ever like, well, Terry won the car. And,
yeah. Because in other seasons, it matters. Guatemala, it matters. In Palau, it matters. I mean, it's like Vanuatu, it matters.
Well, I would imagine that it could have just been like, man, Terry has all the luck. He's been winning all these immunities. Yeah. He's got the hidden immunity dial. He's got the car. We've really got to get Terry.
But I'm saying like the last, like at minimum through season 7, someone has been sour because somebody else won the car.
Right.
And like, I remember in season 6, I think it's the last time we had somebody not be sour because Matt won the car and Rob went with him and Bruce burned down, I forgot what his name was. Gosh, I forgot. The guy who burned down the camp, though, in season 6, that was like, everybody forgot about the car because he burned down the camp.
Right.
Yeah. And so season 7, Bert wins the car. People are salty. Fair Play goes with him. Sandra and I was trying to think of their names. Lil and Dara, that's who it comes up. They come up with a plan and they flip on Burton and Fair Play because of the car,
right?
Which is this big thing. All Stars, Rob wins a car. Rupert's back at camp like, they won a car. Yeah. I can't believe it. I hope the car curse is real. Season 9, I think Eliza wins the car. Not that anybody needs that to be salty against Eliza. They're already salty against her.
Right.
But it's a thing. And it does have a reward challenge. It's interesting. And then season 10, Ian wins I think it was like a Ferrari.
I don't remember. Well, that was Mustang.
But because he won the Ferrari, he brought Tom with him because they made a deal. It's like he has to bring Tom. That because of that, it causes like a big rift back at camp. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then season 11, you have the whole thing where it's like Cindy can either give everyone the car or keep the car for herself. And so this season's like actually the least dramatic car.
It's true.
Of like the past like 5-6 seasons. So yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, because if I could imagine Terry not telling anyone that he got the car, but then you have Courtney and Danielle there too. So I am positive they told.
Yeah. Terry, by the way, Terry's 46, winning all these challenges. Aras is 24, can barely beat Terry in like one challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Crazy though. Like Terry, I know he's ex-military and all, but like just because you're ex-military does not mean you're a beast of challenges. Terry's just wildly built for these challenges.
It's really not that. It is the mental. Like you have to have the physical and the mental, and Terry had both.
Yeah. He really did. And that's why we were going into the final 3 challenge. And unfortunately, I already knew what the final 3 challenge was going to be. But I try to talk as we're watching the show as if I don't know what's coming up. Like, what would I really be thinking if I was watching this without knowing what was going to happen? And it's like, final 3 has always been an endurance challenge in the typical sense. Like, put your hand on an idol or sit on this buoy for as long as possible. Basically, 100% like, what's your will to win.
Right.
And this season, not that. And I know I've kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but let's just talk about it since we're already here.
Well, we're not going to talk about Cirie or the fire making.
We're going to talk about it. We'll circle back to it.
Oh,
but
okay.
Since I accidentally segued to this, let's talk about it. This final 3 immunity challenge was not built fairly.
No.
What did you think when it comes up, it gets shown? What did you think before it even happened?
I thought, oh, this is really easy. They're going to be on here forever. Is what my first thought was. And I'm not sure why, except that I guess the lily pad things looked so big and it didn't really look like they were rocking that much. So I'm just like, oh, this is an easy challenge. But then once they got on them, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This doesn't really make sense because they're all the same size. I'm not great with math and science and all of that, so I don't know like distribution of things, but it seems like the lighter person has the advantage because they have less weight to distribute across the lily pad.
Because it wasn't built with the idea of, okay, here's the set of platforms for Terry, here's the set of platforms for Aras.
Yeah.
It's like, here's just a set of platforms, because production just looked at it from a, probably, I'm guessing, from a everyone's doing this fairly, everyone's the same thing, but it's not fair because everyone does weigh differently. And it's weird because they did another challenge earlier this season where it was literally holding up your body weight, but it was like based on your body weight, and it was a percentage of your body weight.
They've done stuff like that before, though. Like, you're holding up your body weight. But they've never done a
Final 3 endurance challenge where I felt like this is wildly unfair because of somebody just being a larger person.
Yeah. Like, this would have been fine in an earlier individual immunity challenge, you know, one of the early ones, but for the final one, I did feel like it was a little odd.
The last time they did this, I feel like this kind of challenge was Pearl Islands, where they were like all just out in the ocean on those platforms. It's like whoever can survive these waves the longest on this platform wins. And it came down to like,
that the one like the triangle?
That was the one where it came down to Fairplay and Lil, and Fairplay fell on his butt.
Yeah, so is that the one with the triangle teepee thing, or was it like a pole?
No, man, they were just standing on a platform out in the ocean. That's it. That's all it was. There's nothing else. Sandra falls in her butt. Fairplay tries to outbeat Lil. Lil's like, I do squats.
Yeah.
That challenge.
Okay.
And then in Vanuatu, they were like holding the bow and arrow, which you could say, oh, that's unfair to somebody with less arm strength. But really, once again, it really is like, how much do you want it? Because if you want it, you'll just hold that pose, you know? And then season 10 was obviously on the buoy. Season 11's where they're like, now season 11 ended up being unfair, but not because that's how it was designed, just because, oopsie, it went the wrong way with everybody falling off their platform and leaning up against the poles.
Yeah. So
it's weird, back-to-back seasons, like something unfair has happened. Technically both by design, but last season was like accidental. I'm almost surprised they didn't make them redo it the right way. But this season, this season went exactly as they planned it, and it was just they just screwed it up.
Yeah, because I was really surprised Danielle won. I was really imagining Terry won again, and then somehow Aras beat him out at the end, or Danielle beat him out at the end.
Even if these platforms were even, that's still Danielle or Aras probably still wins in this type of challenge.
Yeah, I could see that, because I mean Aras struggled a lot, but which surprised me because I mean with yoga it's supposed to be like really good for your balance. It didn't really surprise me that Terry struggled, because this isn't mental. This is completely, I mean, I guess balance isn't really mental.
It's mental, but it's definitely more balanced than anything else.
It's just like a skill you either learn and know or you don't, you know. It's not strength, you know. You could be the toughest person in the world and just not have good balance. So yeah, I like that they tried to test a different aspect and not just be completely strength or completely mental or whatever, but yeah, I don't think it was fair, and I didn't like it as a final.
No,
immunity.
And I know I showed you. I didn't show you who was in the challenge, of course, but I showed you how in Cook Islands they basically take this concept and fix it. So we do know that next season they will fix it. I'm not spoiling anything there, but yeah, they do it based on the size of like your feet, and the platform like gets smaller based on the size of your feet, though, not based on. It's not like this where it's just like one size fits all, because one size does not fit all for this challenge. Where it had been like just like one, like at least in Pearl Islands, it was one large platform was like clearly large enough for anybody to stand on.
Right.
And that challenge didn't go excessively long. And I'm sure after the almost 12-hour challenge in Palau, they're just like, how can we do an endurance challenge but keep it short enough to not interrupt our schedule? As we saw in Guatemala, where they're like, okay, this challenge will be hard enough where it's not going to last too long. And this challenge this season, Cook Islands the same, I'm sure. So we'll see. I feel like obviously nothing will be longer than Palau. I know that. But we do see how basically because of Palau, endurance challenges kind of get like shortened on purpose.
Yeah.
And even in Modern Survivor, challenges that only took usually a couple hours, now they're trying to get them down to like under half an hour. It's like, why are we in such a rush?
Right.
Yeah.
There should be a little bit of balance there.
Yeah. There's a balance. They struck it and then they've kind of gone overboard. We're not here to talk about Modern Survivor. We're here to talk about season 12.
Yes.
And here I think they are experimenting, but it's kind of like typical Survivor. Like they try something and it just like isn't balanced yet. But unfortunately, this is such a crucial point. This should have been a reward challenge.
Right. Yeah.
And if you don't have something balanced and you're not 100% certain this is going to be fair, Which they probably did think was fair, but
Yeah, because the reward challenge
this should have been a reward challenge.
was a good one as far as like
The climbing up the like the pegs.
It was definitely geared more towards Aras and Terry. But yeah, where they had to get the puzzle
Cirie would have
pieces.
been eviscerated had she made it to it.
Wait, was it puzzle pieces?
Yeah.
Puzzle pieces and get the pegs, and then I think that that was, I don't know, that feels like more of a final challenge to me, but.
Climbing up that tower, and it was so close between those two on that reward challenge.
Right.
That would have been a more fitting immunity challenge, at least. Maybe even if it was like a taller thing to go up or a bigger puzzle or something. But yeah, here this just felt like this should have been a reward challenge because it was not balanced at all.
Yeah.
It was not. It clearly favored only one person. But I mean, we can say about so many challenges, and we're really saying it mostly because Terry gets screwed. But it's like, if Aras would have been screwed. I mean, like, it was literally only Danielle could win this challenge.
Right.
Cirie, even if Cirie was here, she was not winning this challenge.
No.
If this was Cirie, Aras, Terry, Aras probably wins, but that's not a guarantee. I mean, Aras was struggling. Does Cirie do well on that third platform? I don't know. Does Shane do well in this challenge? Probably not. We got to keep going back. Like Courtney, maybe. Is Courtney a balance expert? I don't know.
I think Courtney would be because she's a dancer and she's really light. So
Bruce
could because if he has martial arts and he's small. Like, I don't know.
It's true. Yeah, Bruce might have been the most legitimate competition. I don't know about Courtney, but I think Bruce might have been. But yeah, it's so geared, it's so favored. And I feel like I don't know. I'm a strong proponent, no matter what season of Survivor, that the final meat challenge should be 100% how bad do you want it. No matter what. It should not be based on any other skill. It should 100% be how bad you want it. So put your hand on the sidle and go for it. Or just like stand here and go for it. But like, and I get the production only wants to go for so long. It's just figure it out. Make a challenge. It's like, how bad do you want it? Make it hurt. That's fine. If you need to make it hurt so it doesn't go so long. But definitely, how bad do you want it? Because they'll do some challenges later seasons. And I'm just not spoiling any results, but they'll do challenges where like, and I think you've seen it too. They even did it in like season 3 Africa, where you put like your hand above your head, make sure a bucket of water doesn't fall on you. Like that is a great endurance challenge. It has a dramatic. Yeah, they did in All Stars when Sheehan wins it, and it falls in your head. And it's like, okay, it may not be in the final 3, but take like the idea, like you're hurting them, and it is how bad do you want it. It doesn't take any skill. It's not like a skill you learn.
Right.
It's just how bad do you want it. So that's the kind of challenge I'm saying they should do.
I agree.
Every season, and they've definitely moved away from that, and here they're trying to experiment. So yeah, but let's talk about this final 4 because I got nothing else besides it. So final 4 Stickgate.
Cirie and the fire making challenge.
That's final 4.
Okay, sorry. I just want to talk about Cirie.
So tell us what did you think about Cirie this season? We haven't really talked about her.
I love Cirie. I have seen her in another season, and I didn't get the hype, maybe because she went out earlier or something.
Mary
I don't remember.
has only seen her, for those listening, in Game Changers, where, to be fair, was like your second season ever watching. You had no idea who Cirie was.
No.
Because you'd only seen Millennials versus Gen X before it. And then you saw her in Heroes versus Villains, which is her worst season.
Right.
But you hadn't seen her. Literally, Game Changers is one of her best seasons as well. She's in 4 seasons. This is obviously her origin story. Here, Micronesia and Game Changers are all like top tier Cirie seasons. So yeah, what'd you think about her this season?
I just really liked her because, number one, she kind of reminded me of me, as in like she wasn't physically in shape. She was just, kind of like a mom. Not that I'm a mom, but like the sweet mom at home, like just a regular person. I don't know how else to describe it. She just seems like one of the most.
She's built like somebody you'd see out on the street.
Right. She wasn't like one of the hot models or even one of the older women stereotypes.
Sure.
I know they have mom stereotypes and she's kind of fits that stereotype too. But like she just seemed like the most genuine, normal person you could ever meet. She was so sweet. She was constantly on the bottom towards the beginning of the season. And she always found a way to just sweetly and kindly, move around or direct attention somewhere else. But she was so smart too. Like she was really good at directing attention to someone else or
letting things happen and letting people destroy themselves.
Right, exactly. she was just really smart and really sweet. And as you can tell, even the final two, they're like, who is the most influential person to you? And both of them said Cirie. And I think a bunch of people would say that. I think if she got to the end, she would have won.
If you really think about it, just compare her to the other final three. You got Terry, who we don't know how he grew up, but he's clearly successful. I mean, he was in the Navy, but like he's clearly a guy who's got his stuff together.
Yeah.
Like he's not in any sort of hardship, where I feel like Shane probably is, but I think we kind of see that Shane's a mess. So, but I'm saying that you compare to like Terry, who has his stuff together. Aras, who's 20. I think Aras and Danielle are the same age here, 24. And we hear, though we do not ever hear from them about how well off they basically are. Like Danielle literally has fake boobs. And it's so obvious the whole season. And but she's so young. It's like, where'd you get the money for this?
Right.
You know?
Well, that's why I haven't kept bringing up like, it's not your daddy or your boyfriend's not gonna pay for it or take care of it. Yeah.
But then Aras, we get the same thing where it's like, Aras, you're freeloading off your parents. Aras is 24. Aras is he's not in college. He's out of school. He's an adult. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. By the way, I'm not like sitting here like saying that necessarily coming from money is bad, but we are saying in comparison to Cirie, who is a mom of two and is clearly not rich, but she feels more like the average person.
Right. Whereas
these are people either come from money or have figured or are at the point in their life where they've got it figured out, and they have I don't know if Terry has money, but he definitely comes across like
I'm sure he's stable.
Yeah, he's very stable, I guess the word.
Yeah.
He's got stuff together. And I'm not saying Cirie doesn't have her stuff together. She's very great. She's a great person, but she comes across as more of an average person.
Right.
That's what makes her so relatable.
Right.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Aras and Danielle, both 24. A little bit surprised, by the way, that we never... I mean, I guess it's on me to think that just because you're a male and a female that you should be attracted to each other, which is terrible. But I'm actually surprised that Aras and Danielle get to final two. Same age. They don't even mention like being attracted to each other. Like none of them are married.
Well,
this isn't like even Stephanie and Bobby John. We at least address that Stephanie and Bobby John, it's a marriage of convenience. Like they do not like each other.
Well, I was going to say that there seemed to be a lot of fighting between Aras and Courtney and Aras and Danielle. And like, I don't think
you don't ever...
I felt like it was more of a marriage convenience for them.
Yeah.
Like I felt like there was more attraction between Danielle and Austin on that one day of Exile Island.
Oh yeah, because she was definitely like, yeah, Austin's kind of hot. I don't think she directly said that, but it came across a little bit like that.
But for some reason, that group of four just never, like, they worked together, but it really was more like a brother-sister relationship where they annoyed each other constantly.
And maybe I'm misremembering.
But they were willing to work together.
I just feel like the show never addressed it. Like it could have been like a one-line thing, like Danielle, she's like a sister to me, and maybe they did say that, and I'm sorry if they did, but I was like waiting for them. Like, are we ever going to address these two relationship? Because like these two are like they're the same age, they're both attractive. Like, let's address the elephant in the room. But no, never came up. I mean, you know, I
didn't even think about that.
I thought about it only when we got down to like the final like four, and I'm like, okay, Aras and Danielle are still here. And obviously Terry and Cirie are both married. And they get to the final two together. And Danielle does make an alliance with Aras. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, Aras and Danielle do vote against each other the final four. So I'm not saying, I don't know. It's just weird that it was, to me, it felt like it was never addressed at all, period. Whereas like even Stephanie and Bobby John didn't have to be addressed, but it was.
Sure.
You know, it was addressed. It was even addressed in a season where they weren't even really on the same tribes together. You know, it's like because everyone kind of wondered like, oh, Bobby John, Stephanie, like, no, they worked together. That was it. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I mean, that's just me. You get two attractive people about the same age, single, you know, down to the,
we don't even know if they were single though, I guess.
And it's just, that's true. They could have been dating somebody. That's another thing though. I feel like this season, it's so strange. Like this is season, like I feel like because it falls a little flat in a lot of areas because I feel like I didn't get to know them as much as I wanted to, weirdly, with a cast of only 16. I don't know. And was it because there was an island and there was the idol is it because this is like, we're starting to get talking more about twists and strategy and stuff? I don't know.
It could be.
Because I feel like for the season, we kind of moved away from people talking about who they are and what they desire in life. I mean, like learning all 16. Heck, the first boot, we did learn about like her son dying. Tina Shear, I think her name was. Like her son died like what, months before she got on the show. Very traumatic.
Yeah, because she was supposed to be on.
Oh, she's supposed to be on another season?
Yeah, she was supposed to be on the previous season.
Guatemala?
Yeah, she was supposed to be on Guatemala.
Oh, actually, probably. I don't think she makes it very far in Guatemala.
Probably not, but
because that season was straight up who is strong here.
Yeah.
So she probably doesn't fare any better there.
But she didn't go to Guatemala because her son had just died.
Oh, so they put her in Exile Island instead. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's crazy.
It does suck.
Yeah.
But that was like the reason she went home was because she was just going off by herself on the beach, which is kind of to be understood as she's still in the grieving process, but she wasn't making any connections. And so,
funnily enough, Tina there is a contestant on season 33 who goes on the show because of Tina.
Really?
They meet Tina, and I'm like, out of all the people, you met a first boot, and she inspired this person to watch it. And I'm not going to spoil anything for 33. Just know that if you watch the secrets of my video about season 33, I talk about it. So yeah, thought it was interesting about her. But okay, so final four, they get done voting out Shane, and they come back to camp, and Cirie drops her torch on the ground.
Yeah.
And a fight ensues between her and Terry. Can you recap what this fight is about?
Well, Terry was upset that she dropped it in the middle of the path, basically, and he was right behind her, and it was really dark, and he could have tripped over it. And he's like, basically saying it's like a kid who just leaves their stuff around. He's like, and you're not a kid, Cirie. And she's like, no, I'm not a kid.
Yeah,
so
he's
leave
like,
me alone.
I expect more of you because you're not.
And Cirie was basically saying she didn't know Terry was behind her. She wasn't sure where she was at and didn't realize she'd left her right in the path because it was really dark and they couldn't see anything. The fire was out. So it was one of those moments that's just kind of like, oh, man, I know everybody's tired and hungry and emotions are high right now. And Terry's mad because he wanted to take Shane with him and he thought people were voting with him. And once again, people were not voting with him, even though they said they were. So I feel like it was more of Terry getting some anger out and Cirie just like not putting up with it anymore. Because we see Terry, as much as I do like Terry, we do see him being pretty controlling, pretty aggressive all throughout the season.
To me, Terry did not play a great strategic game. I went into the season knowing that people considered him robbed. And I'm like, I finished the season. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know he gets to the final three and beats anybody here in the final four. Like his best shot was probably against Shane.
Probably.
I don't think he... We'll talk about that.
I think he beats Danielle for sure, but he doesn't beat Aras.
And we'll talk about that. We'll talk through the jury and who votes for who. Because his best shot is against Shane. Danielle's a legitimate shot, but Aras and Cirie, I don't think he beats.
No.
And so this fight is just like, man, you're doing yourself no favors here.
Yeah, it's like he even says later, you know, I do have areas for improvement and I do want to grow and I do want to improve, which is good because I think he did realize here that he was being too aggressive.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and hopefully watching it on TV, he also learned a little bit.
He seems pretty level-headed.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a great person and he's really, I think that's the problem. He is smart. Yeah. He is good at a lot of things, and so he just assumes that, you know, he knows best, and a lot of times he does know best. It is dangerous to just throw your torch down in the middle of the path in the dark with other people around.
It's like they're both in the wrong but for different reasons. Yeah Cirie
for sure
probably shouldn't have just thrown her stick on the ground, her torch on the ground, because if somebody does wake up in the middle of the night and walks and then they trip on it, we saw that in Palau. Somebody like rolled their ankle on a coconut, which no one's gonna be blamed for a coconut being on the ground. But this is literally right. And then, but on the other hand, Terry addressed it completely wrong. Yeah,
there's no reason to blow up over it. It would just be like, oh hey, I almost tripped over torch.
Like, hey Cirie, can you? I don't know. I'm trying to think of a better way because like emotions were high. He just got blindsided on the Shane vote. He wanted Shane to stay, so it was a lot. It was a lot. It feels kind of like the whole Tom, Ian, and Katie situation in Palau, where like a whole fight broke out between them in the final three, and Tom's like, Ian, just tell the truth, and Ian's like, oh, you know, he's like resisting, and it's like, Ian, bro, like, just tell the truth. But Tom also like, chill. Yeah. Like emotions are just high, you know. And
I'm sure at that point it is just hard. Yeah. To control your emotions and to be
39 days does its toll.
Yeah, it does, and you can tell that. So it was interesting. I mean, it's like a side of Terry and Cirie that you don't really want to see, but it's also kind of cool to see that they're just people. You know, they have tiredness issues.
This is something too here. I feel like once this episode kicks off, that's why I'm like, these final 2 episodes are like the most interesting episodes of the season to me, is because like all of a sudden a Terry versus Aras feud breaks out. And it's like, if this existed before this episode, I really wish they had integrated in the season, because it is like the most interesting part to me of the final 2 episodes. Because like here, Cirie, just like usual, is like, I'm not getting in between these two. And same thing, Danielle, she's like, no, these two are like being alpha male, seeing who's the bigger alpha male. And they're just going at it, like even at the challenge. And Aras like, call the wambulance. Aras is funniest line of the season by far. Terry's crying about the immunity challenge, which, by the way, I don't think I wrote a note about, but we need to talk about that. I mean, well, that was an immunity challenge. That was a reward challenge, if I recall.
I don't remember.
It was the one with the other than the carabiners. Remember that?
No, I think that was actually a reward immunity. That's the one Aras won.
Was that the immunity?
No, he won the puzzle one.
Either way, it doesn't. Whether it's immunity or reward is inconsequential to the discussion I want to have about it. So. This is what we get, by the way. We talk about whole season at once versus episode by episode, week by week. Yeah, we're just kind of trying to cover a whole breadth of stuff. But anyways, let's talk about this Terry and Aras feud, because it does, like, all of a sudden it feels like not out of left field maybe necessarily, but it's like, yeah, all of a sudden it's like, who's the bigger alpha male between these two? And it's like, by the way, the answer's Terry. Yes. I know Aras wins the season, but it's Terry. Like, the answer's Terry. Terry's the alpha male. Aras is Aras with a few years on him. Maybe could become the alpha male, but no, Terry's the alpha male.
Yeah. It was a reward challenge. I just looked it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this reward challenge, they're doing the carabiners. And by the way, I'm a little bit confused just watching it the one time, like what the rules really were. But but the point is that at one point they get to, they're going to each station, and each day there's 6 stations. And they got to like count things to get a number. So all 6 stations, if they get all the right numbers, it's going to unlock the locks and give them and then they win. And so they're going back to recount because they've screwed up. They've gone to all 6 stations, and Terry's like, "Hey, Aras is looking at multiple stations at once," and Jeff's like, "That's fine," basically. Yeah. And Aras is like, "Oh, call the ambulance." Terry's complaining, and I'm like, "Wait, Terry's saying this like he's like, Jeff, you never said that." I'm like, wait, did Jeff say that? Good point, Terry. Thankfully, we're watching this on DVD, so we can rewind. So we did. We rewound it, because when you're just watching the challenge, they're not like, by the way, the thing Jeff's saying right now is going to be important.
Yeah.
So we rewound it and listened to what Jeff said. And Jeff doesn't explicitly say you cannot go to multiple.
But it does seem, the way it's phrased, it does seem like you go to a station, then you come back. So I can see why there was confusion. I can see why Terry's trying to clarify it, but he does kind of do it in a whining way, like, "Oh, that's not allowed, isn't it?" You know?
Well, yeah. So basically, if you listen to Jeff's instructions on this challenge, it sounds a lot like Jeff is saying, you got to go to each station once, come back, get the number, go back to the next station, one at a time. Once you go to all 6, then you can go back to a station and recount. But it's so strongly implied in the wording that you can only do one at a time.
Yeah.
But he never says one at a time. So it's 100% up for interpretation. In this case, it was interpreted as, once you do all 6, do the crap you want. And so Terry's arguing like, but you never said explicitly that we can only do one at a time, or we're allowed to go to all of them. Because the way Jeff says it does strongly imply go to one at a time. Yeah. And then come back. So when it's like, call the ambulance, it's like either whether you're on Terry's side or Aras' side, it doesn't matter, because Jeff was not explicitly clear either direction.
Right.
So they're both doing what's best for themselves. Terry's like, had I known that, I would have gone to multiple. Aras like is just like, let me see if I could do this, because it was never said I couldn't do it, you know. Which, by the way, Aras took the route that you should do on Survivor. Unless Jeff says you can't do it, do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's probably because all Jeff says is, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Not like, yeah, I said that was, I said that. Did you not hear?
Just like that. Yeah. Yeah.
It basically just sounded like, yeah, I'll allow it kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. And I think sometimes it is just like that. It's like, well, you're right. We never clarified that, but I'll allow it. Yeah. I mean, we see in like modern Survivor where like people can get up and talk to each other at Tribal Council, but in season 4, it was explicitly stated that no, you cannot have secret conversations because this is Tribal Council. So it's kind of like, it is kind of like, well, is this good for TV or is this good for the moment or what? You know, it's like the rules are rules, but It's really whatever Jeff says you're allowed to do.
Probst,
yeah. Yeah. But then again, we've heard in the behind the scenes stuff, and they, of course, they're never going to show this. We're like season 10, Tom, Jeff tried changing the rules of that Baba Booey challenge with him and Ian, Tom and Ian, and the final 3 to like they have to do it with 1 foot instead of both feet. And they were like, I forgot how many hours into the challenge. And Tom's like, no, you said both feet. And until you call your lawyers and they say differently, I'm doing this with both feet. And they're not going to leave that in the show. But it's like, it is what Jeff says until you threaten the lawyers, I guess. Like Terry could have been like, until the lawyers say otherwise. No. This challenge like too rapid to like do something like that. Plus, I think they would have been like, actually, Jeff's never said you couldn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no. But there has been like other behind the scenes. Like I remember there was one challenge in Guatemala where Gary argued that actually Cindy didn't cross the line first. They went back and watched the videotape. So people have challenged this stuff before. This is the first time I feel like we've seen it openly addressed in an episode. And it's more so, it feeds into the feud. So it kind of works.
Yeah.
Plus, if they cut this out, I've been like, why would you cut this out?
Well, the episode was called Call the Ambulance.
Yeah.
So I think they liked the joke enough to leave it in there.
Clearly. It was Aras' funniest. It's his winner quote.
His winner quote. All right. So we have the whole feud, and then they're like out catching fish. And really, Aras nor Terry make the fish thing into like, who can catch more fish? It's really gone through the perspective of Danielle. Yeah, but it's kind of obvious.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Just for listening to the subtext. Oh, it wasn't a lot, but I did get 5,
Yeah, 4 small and 1 medium.
Right. And then ours is like, oh, all I got was this huge one right here. And it's just
and he
like,
whips it out of his bag and slaps it on
it's so obvious, like this whole man competition thing.
This had been going on for episodes before this on the show.
It might have been.
I know, but I wish they had put it in the show, is what I'm saying. Like, here's a storyline that's interesting. It's Aras versus Terry thing that kind of just pops up in episode 4. It's like, that I really wish this had been a thing in like episode 5 and 6. Like I'm sorry, when I say episode 5 and 6, I mean 5 and 6.
You said
final
episode
5,
4.
final 6 is what I'm implying.
I understand, but
I know, but some people will get very particular in the comments if I don't specify things. So that's why I say that. So here we get the final 4 vote, and Terry has a super idol in his pocket. Everyone doesn't know for a fact. Danielle does though, but everyone pretty much knows, obviously. No one else has played up to this point. Aras and Cirie and Danielle don't have it, because if they did, they'd be like, I'm good. I don't need to talk about fire making.
Yeah.
Obviously, Terry must have it. So they're going into this vote, and basically Terry and Danielle are voting for Cirie, and Cirie and Aras are voting for Danielle to basically force a fire making contest. Because technically, I'm sure 3 of them could have figured out that they want to vote for one person if they wanted to. But the thought is like, get rid of Cirie, because she's likely to win.
Right.
But then Aras sides with Cirie, probably because they're good friends is how it comes across.
Right.
But it's like, Aras, like, Cirie's going to beat you in the final too.
But I do like his loyalty. And
I mean, it probably helps get her vote at the end.
And I definitely helped get her vote at the end.
Which is so smart on that. At the end of the game, it's all that really matters. But
right. And Cirie's the first time she made fire was like the day before.
It was like that episode.
Yeah. So even if he was secretly like.
But Danielle does say, I've only made it like once myself.
No, Danielle says I make fire all the time.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
I thought she said she made it like once herself.
Cirie said I've only seen Danielle make it once.
Oh, okay.
But so somewhere between there, Danielle's made fire probably like 2 times or something like that. You know what I mean? But also Danielle's been on Exile Island by herself and had to make fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she was on Exile with what, Austin?
They didn't make fire that time. Yeah. But then she went back by herself, and remember, it was like beautiful, and she's like, oh, it's fine. I loved it. So she had to make fire then too.
At least you would hope so. Yeah.
Right. And then Cirie says she's seen her make fire. So we know she's made fire at least twice.
More often than Cirie. And you could tell in the challenge, because the way they build their fires is like, Danielle is not an expert, but clearly she has an idea of like how to build the fire and keep it going. Whereas Cirie like gets it going faster, but then like blows it on actually keeping it going. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like such an obvious, it's like obviously Cirie's the amateur. I mean, they're both amateurs, but Cirie's obviously less experienced.
Right. And I mean, when they showed her making the fire earlier in the episode, I'm like, oh, so does she win the fire making challenge? But obviously that was a setup too. not obviously, but
pretty much.
I was just hoping she would go through. But
it's funny how from this season until like Modern Survivor, like the fire making challenge like pops up so many times. And it's like there are always like hints about it when it's going to come up too. Like because here it's not like a standard thing that happens. It's only in the event of a tie at the final four, but like it happens enough time that I've made a whole video about it. So
happens enough that you should be practicing your fire making skills the whole time.
Here, season 12, it's a little bit understandable if that I mean, first off, I think Jeff has been preaching. I don't know what season he started, but he was like preaching every time he goes on interviews, like learn how to make fire.
Yeah.
Learn it. Like this is a skill you're going to need on the show.
Yeah.
But like now in the modern day, it's like, no, it literally is because there is a twist that has happened in many, many seasons now. And so you see it, it's like because of that, it's almost like that twist maybe not should have happened earlier. The final four fire making being required. But like here you see like had people just practice, like this would have been a much closer race. Cirie would have been more practiced, hopefully. So like in a way, like because of that twist happening later, people go into the show and it's like if you like I'm disgusted is not the word, but I am like appalled. I don't know. I'm not like I don't know. I'm just
shocked.
Like how do you go on this show and not know how to make fire is what I say in Modern Survivor. But here I'm like I get it. Like other people make fire and it's not something that's not like a guaranteed challenge to happen, you know. But yeah, you kind of would hope that Cirie and Danielle would have been practicing, is what I'm saying, before this challenge happened.
Well, so that's what I'm saying about...
Because they both knew it was going to happen.
That's what I'm saying about Aras is that, sure, he like tried to coach her and help her that day, just like Terry coached and helped Danielle that day.
Yeah.
But in the back of his mind, he probably was like, you know, it's probably not good for Cirie to go with me. So she's probably not going to win this fire making challenge. So I'm just going to vote with her, you know, just for the extra loyalty points and feel good points from the jury, hopefully, and to make it more interesting, because he was genuinely friends with Cirie and I think they really got along. I just think he probably knew she wouldn't win it. I
do want to talk about the super idol here because this is the last tribal council that can be played. Terry obviously is not going to be voted for because they assume he's going to play it for himself. So my question is, and it's never addressed in the show, is obviously it's come across as after the votes are read, you can play it for yourself. But it definitely comes across like you cannot play for anyone else after the votes are read. Because otherwise Terry would have played his idol for Danielle.
Yeah.
Is my assumption.
I think so. And Jeff even said, I'm pretty sure Jeff says like whoever has the idol can, you know, if you have the idol in your pocket, you can let me know now or whatever. You know, like it's very specifically if you're holding on to it, you know, you can't just be given to it.
So that's my question is because you can give it to somebody else. It's talked about in the show.
Right.
As he could have given it to Danielle.
But not after votes were read.
So that's okay. So I want to talk about that because, all right. So after the votes of everyone's cast their votes and they read them, you can play your idol for yourself. That's the rule established. I think we can agree on that. Before any votes happen, period, anybody writes down a vote, you can give the idol to somebody else. Now, the issue with that, I think for Terry specifically, is that he gives it to Danielle. Danielle probably turns on Terry and says, hey guys, we can vote out Terry. He gave me the idol. And everyone's like, oh, great. What a perfect thing for us to do. And though she loses Terry's vote, it's really at this point, it's more of like, how do I get to the final two? Because at this point, Terry looks unstoppable in challenges. They don't know what the final three challenge is going to be. They can safely assume it's going to be an endurance challenge. And Terry, bet your butt if it is, he's not going to get let go or quit or whatever it is. He's going to need to pass out. So him and Aras, by the way, I think Aras would go tit for tat with Terry on endurance challenge. We really missed out on that this season. Whereas Danielle probably been the one who's like, I'm going to drop because I think both will take me. If she's smart, she would know that both are going to take me. So I'm good. And even it's really about getting rid of Cirie at this point. So that's the thing. So if Terry gives Danielle the idol, do you think she rats out Terry or do you think she sticks with him and they get out Cirie? Because that's the goal, is to get out Cirie here.
She definitely rats him out.
Do you think so? Yeah, she has burned him before.
Because like you said, she is positive he's going to win in the next immunity challenge.
Yeah.
And
but does she know he's going to take her? I guess she knows that she's going to lose to Terry. But then she makes such a big deal about it, the final three, like she doesn't know who she's going to pick. And to be fair, I think it's a legit discussion. Who should she pick? So it's like if Terry...
she totally should have picked Terry because no one
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
we'll talk about it. We'll
Yeah.
get there. But right now at the final four, and I want to discuss, it is never cleared up. Can Terry play this idol after the votes are cast but before they're read, like we see in any season from 14 onwards? Because it is not clarified. It is not said.
I don't think it's been thought of.
That's the thing. And it's like, okay, let's say, well, just like we talked about earlier, sometimes Jeff goes, I'll allow it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say everyone casts their votes. Terry gets up and says, hey, Jeff, I'm going to give my idol to Danielle. She has my idol. Now that the votes have already been cast, he's banking on, now he is definitely banking on no tie vote between him and someone else.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to go to fire making. He doesn't want to be voted out. He's banking on the votes going to Danielle and Cirie, which at this point I think is a safe assumption. Everyone knows he has the idol. Can he give his idol to Danielle and Danielle have it in her possession at the final four before the votes are read? It's like, I mean, you don't know. Jeff could have allowed it.
He could have allowed it.
Yeah, could have allowed it. I mean,
I don't think Terry would have ever.
The worst that's going to happen
though.
is Jeff goes, no, which is what they're already assuming. So
I don't like I said, we are thinking of it in the context of we've seen it happen between the votes being cast and the votes being read. But
which
to
gives
them,
us a different
that's like
perspective.
all the same thing. You don't separate those. So I don't think anyone even thought about it.
Well, clearly, if it had been thought about, it wasn't discussed or it wasn't shown on the show. And I do think that, or if it was discussed, they were like, hey, you can't do that. But it was never clarified. That's what I'm saying. Like, so obviously we're coming at this with a different perspective of having seen seasons where they do that, because it's very dramatic. That's like the most dramatic way of doing it.
Yeah.
Not before the votes are cast, not after the votes are read, in between the two. But the thing is like, if the goal here is to get out Cirie, that's the goal. The goal for him and Danielle's got Cirie. I wonder if he could have. I wonder if he could have done that. So I would love to hear people's comments on what they think on that, because I mean, I think he could have tried it, and the worst they could have said was no.
Yeah. But again, in Terry's mind, he's safe through to the next round.
He doesn't care.
Whether Danielle or Cirie goes, I don't think it matters to him. To him, his big competition is Aras, and that's really all he cares about. Like, obviously, he wanted Danielle because he felt like he could vote with her over Cirie,
even though she's burned him before.
Even though she burned him already. But that was his only shot. So I don't know.
Okay, so we are only talking about what could have been. Obviously, it didn't happen. So Cirie goes home on the fire making. We're in the final episode. Danielle wins immunity. Obviously, her and Aras sort of deal, because Aras was like, "Should I drop?" And she just shakes her head.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking at each other, and she's just like nodding and nodding.
Yeah, he doesn't ask a question.
Yeah, there was no words spoken that we were shown either before
no,
or
I think
during.
if there was, we would have seen
right,
it.
but it really did seem like it was an obvious like, oh, well, you
like Aras looked at her like, I don't think I can last it. And she's like, you're fine.
Yeah,
is how it came across.
Yeah,
but so we go back to camp, and Aras is like kind of like threatens Danielle.
Oh, he definitely threatens her.
Yeah, he definitely.
He says, well, if you take Terry, then you lose mine and Cirie's vote.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I don't know how he can guarantee Cirie's vote. I don't think Danielle had Cirie's vote anyways.
Yeah, that's just.
But he's saying if it's her against Terry, for sure, it's him and Cirie are voting for her. I call BS on that. I think Aras does vote for. But then again, maybe Aras does vote for Terry. You think so? Over Danielle?
Yes.
They definitely weren't attracted to each other. You're right.
No. No, this is in Aras's mind. Like, I think I can tell enough of Aras's personality where he would have respected Terry's game. He would have appreciated him as being more of a survivor player than Danielle.
Yeah.
And deserving the win more than she did.
Because as Aras explicitly says himself, he has, at this point, not that it magically goes away because he slipped on a rock, but he has an ego problem.
Yeah.
He says that. Mm-hmm. Kind of a shame it took him to the last episode to realize it. It would have been great as a story arc had he realized it earlier, but you can't force people to fit into a better narrative. So, so at this point, in his own words, he has a bigger ego. And he's over here threatening Danielle. It's like, yeah, I mean, you might have voted for Terry, seeing more of himself in Terry than obviously in Danielle. And usually you vote for winner you see more of yourself in, or played a way that you respect, or played a way that you would have played if you could have. Usually what happens. Usually vote for the person who you feel better represents what you want out of a winner, which is usually how you played. And Terry played more like Aras than Danielle ever did.
Yeah.
Danielle literally was called lazy by multiple people. and has been viewed as somebody who clearly comes for money because many people said it. I mean, she never said it, but many people said it.
People said it a lot.
And they lived with her for days on end. So they probably talked to her, heard about where she came from, how she grew up, and yada, yada, yada. And stuff we didn't quite hear, but yeah. She was the captain of sports, though. All of the sports at once. She was the captain.
She just said I was a captain of a sport.
Said she was the captain of sports.
Did she?
She said of multiple. She said sports with an S. So the captain of sports.
I thought she meant like just of different
She's
sports.
She's the captain of football, the captain of basketball, the captain of soccer, the captain of baseball, captain of softball. She played them all. Any sport you can think of, hockey, she was the captain.
You are not the person to be making fun of a grammatical error.
What are you saying?
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, go give me some Cool Whip. Anyways, and of course I say it correctly. I was trying to make a joke. So anyways, all right, so the question here is, Danielle takes Aras, we know this. So let's do an alternate universe. And if Danielle takes Terry, who votes for Terry first? Let's start there. Let's say Danielle does make their decision. Who votes for Terry? Guaranteed votes.
I think Aras and Cirie and Shane
are guaranteed votes for Terry. You think Shane votes for Terry too?
Yeah, because he was so
Oh, that's right.
mad.
He was very anti-Danielle.
So mad at Danielle.
Okay, so I think he obviously has Austin and Sally.
Right, and Austin and Sally.
So he has Austin and Sally, and we learned that he has Shane based on the way Shane talked to Terry. Based on the way he talked to Aras and Danielle. Of course, literally saying that Terry's the one who deserves to be here to win.
Right.
So we pretty much can, we can take that information, know that for a fact Terry has 3 votes. Now, Danielle doesn't know for a fact Terry has 3 votes. She's going to the decision knowing that he probably has 2 between Sally and Austin, which is, but on the other hand, Aras guaranteed has Terry's vote if Terry's on the jury. So no matter what, somebody has guaranteed votes. Danielle's not pulling off some perfect game or something.
No.
Yeah. So that's the question. It's like, okay, so Terry is guaranteed 3 votes. And if she can guess that Shane is on Terry's team, yeah, you take Aras because that's 3 votes. And while 3 votes is not enough to win, one of the other 4 are probably going to vote for Terry. And if you put Aras in the jury, he's probably the 4th one, as you said.
Right.
So
and that could have been her logic of why she picked Aras. She wanted to appear loyal to a tribe, even though she backstabbed
she's in a no-win
half
situation.
Of them. Yeah, she really would have lost either way. And maybe she knew that too. I don't think so. I think she was really thinking she had a better chance against Aras because Terry won so many times.
The captain of sports needed to align with, crazily enough, with Shane and Courtney.
Yeah.
Instead of Aras and Cirie, because Aras and Cirie are too good for her to beat. She needed to align with Courtney and Shane and turn on Aras and Cirie, because Aras and Cirie were very available to be voted out. It's not like they were stacked with immunities and idols. No, they had nothing. They could have gone. So that's all 2020 perspective, though. As you're watching the show, you're like, these vote outs make sense as they go along. We're not like sitting here going, oh, why'd they vote out Courtney? Why'd they vote out Shane? It made sense, but it's all 2020. So 2020 perspective, looking back at it, hindsight, I mean, yeah, she should have gone against Shane or Courtney. I feel like she has a better shot against both of them.
I agree.
Yeah, you get Shane on the final 2 lashing out at people. You probably got it.
And again, that was all Cirie who kind of came up with the let's get out of Courtney, because I know Terry wants her to be second, and she never even really got blamed for that.
Nope.
It was all
she
Aras
did
and
the
Danielle.
3-2-1 vote and worked beautifully.
Nobody was mad at
Cirie. Yeah. In fact, I think it was acknowledged that was a great move, if I recall. So yeah. That's all 2020. Basically, Danielle can't win against Terry. So let's look at this from a different perspective. Let's say in our magical fantasy universe, I don't know how this happens. Somehow, Aras and Terry are in the final 2. I don't know who wins and who and why. Maybe Terry wins and he says, I'm going to take Aras because I respect Aras. And it'd be too easy a win to beat Danielle. I don't know if that sounds more like a Tom Westman to me, but
yeah.
But let's just assume that somehow Terry and Aras are in the final 2. Who votes for? We still know for a fact
Austin and
that
Sally.
Austin and Sally vote for Terry. I mean, we say for a fact because they're formerly Mina, and they even vote with Terry for Aras to win the game.
Right.
So it seems like they're all in sync, and everyone in Lamina greatly respected Terry. A jury of Lamina, Terry wins. But he only has 2 Lamina, so. So then, does Shane still vote for Terry over Aras? Yes, we learned.
I think so.
Because he said Terry's the one who deserves to win. So Terry still has 3 votes. Does Aras get the other 4? That's the question. Does Aras get Danielle, Cirie, Courtney, and I'm blanking on the other person. Bruce, yes, Bruce, obviously. So let's talk this through. Does he get Courtney? Let's start there. Does Courtney vote for Aras? Does she vote for Terry?
I would say she voted for Aras, but I really don't know.
I think I'm going to pull up who she voted for. If I recall correctly, only Bruce and who else voted for Danielle?
Only Bruce and, oh goodness.
I know, I'm blanking on. It was Bruce.
I want to say Courtney.
I don't know if we mentioned this. Did Bruce have a little crush on Danielle?
Somebody, I think Cirie said at some point that one of the reasons she wanted Danielle out was because Bruce had a thing for her.
Yeah. Definitely an age gap there.
But I really don't know if she was saying had a thing romantically or if he just really liked her.
Yeah. Could have been like a father-daughter thing. Yeah.
It kind of seemed like romantically the way, but it was just one sentence, and I don't remember how she phrased it.
I feel like we've seen so many times in Survivor up to this point where it's been an older guy and a younger woman, but it's 100% more of father-daughter thing. We've seen it many times, so.
Oh, wait. Shane voted for Danielle. It was Shane and Bruce.
So Shane votes for Danielle over Aras.
Because of the numbers.
So that 100% tells us that Shane is definitely voting for Terry over Aras.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't even pick Aras over Danielle. So it's Bruce and Shane. So I think we can say for a fact that Shane obviously votes for Terry. He literally says that. So Bruce is our question mark. Because I think we can safely assume Cirie votes for Aras.
I think Bruce votes for Terry because he was in the older men's tribe with him.
In the very beginning of the game.
And he was always on the bottom with Kasaya. Even though he stuck with Kasaya for a long time. And Terry kept saying, hey, you should come over with us. You should come over with us.
Yeah.
He never did it. But I think that was just more of a numbers thing. I think he just probably did like Terry more and probably respected him more.
Terry probably can convince Bruce, be like, hey, man, we're friends. I think Terry can pull it off with Bruce. And I think you're right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so I do think Aras gets Cirie for a fact. I don't think Cirie votes for Terry. I mean, Terry and her literally had a fight. I don't think Cirie and Aras ever fought.
Yeah, Cirie was really tight with Aras. She would have voted Aras.
And then we have Courtney. Courtney is a wild card. We can say she votes for Aras. Maybe she just votes for Aras. Because for sake of argument, we don't really know. She voted for Aras over Danielle. Let's just say she votes for Aras over Terry. There's no reason why she would vote for Terry over Aras that we're showing on the show. And then who's the other juror? It
would be Danielle.
Danielle. And she was, and to be fair, her and Aras voted against each other at the Final Four. And it was kind of a alliance of convenience against Terry in the Final 3.
I think Danielle votes for Aras.
You still think she votes for Aras? Yeah, and I could see that because loyalty there. They were together from episode 2 until the end, and Terry was kind of the thorn in their side. And we already saw her burn Terry once, and we said that if Terry had given her the idol, she probably burns him again. We're just guessing here. So I think the assumption is that Danielle votes for Aras. So Terry probably wins 4-3. He gets Shane, he gets Austin, he gets Sally, and he gets Bruce.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah. That would have been a very epic final 2 though, to have those two sitting there and getting the jury and seeing how it played out. Terry could win 5-2. Aras maybe could slip out 4-3 maybe. I don't think Aras we pretty much know for a fact doesn't get any more than 4 votes though. Aras can only win 4-3.
Yeah, I think so.
3 jurors are locked into Terry in my opinion. So yeah, I think that this season though was not as good as the past couple. Even Guatemala wasn't some amazing season, but it had a lot of fun moments.
Right.
This season to me lacked in the fun moments.
Well, it was just Kasaya taking the other tribe out one by one and Terry fighting for his life.
Yeah.
Which that was kind of interesting. I was kind of rooting for him just because.
It's how vested are you in Terry?
Right.
Yeah.
But then Terry's personality wasn't the best. So.
No.
Yeah, it was all right.
Now, had it been Cirie doing what Terry did, I know that's sounds so insane, but had it been a Cirie personality doing what Terry was doing, it'd been oh my gosh, how do we not root for Cirie?
Well, sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying.
I mean, she kind of did that, though. She was on the bottom constantly.
Yeah.
And she worked her way in, just not through challenges.
Cirie played a better game by far than Terry. But we say, and I mean a social game, though, because the game of Survivor is more than just the social. It's also the challenges. It just is every single episode. So I do want to mention that Jeff this season was sarcastic. And I'm not trying to date this podcast for anyone listening in the future, but we are watching Modern Survivor. And at some point, Jeff has taken a turn towards being overly nice. It's a little weird.
It was refreshing to have the old Jeff.
It was kind of refreshing to have Jeff be sarcastic. That's all the comments I have about this. I do also want to mention that, and I know we're so deep in the podcast, I hope someone's listening to this, because it's so commonly thought that in season 13, the next season we'll watch, that a player talks back to Jeff Probst, and that's the first time it happens in the show. Because the first 11 seasons, nobody talks back to him during a challenge.
Shane talked back to him.
That's where I'm going with this. You stole it.
Sorry.
I know, that's where I'm getting at. The first 11 seasons, no one ever talked back to Jeff while he's talking. He's not like, Kasai is blowing the challenge. And so, no. This is the first time Shane does it I think it's the Final 5 immunity challenge where Jeff says something and Shane's like, oh, thanks a lot, Jeff, or something like that.
I feel like so many people had to talk back.
In the first 11 seasons talked back to Jeff during a challenge. I know, crazy, right? It's so commonly thought that Jonathan Penner next season's the first one who does it, but it's only because Jeff says something about it next season. This season, Jeff doesn't say anything. We just get like Shane saying his thing, and Jeff has like this like look on his face.
Yeah.
Of kind of like, I'm shocked that somebody talked back to me, but he didn't know what to do. And it kind of is almost like season 13. It's almost like Jeff was like, okay, if somebody does this again, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
And next season you'll see it. He says something, but it's like this season's like he didn't expect Shane to talk back to him during the challenge. Jeff's like, I thought I was just a fly on the wall. Nobody noticed me.
No, I thought I had control and nobody was going to disrespect me.
if somebody did the first 11 seasons, please comment and let me know. That's why I say I hope this isn't too deep in the podcast. But I otherwise I'm going to call it. Shane's the first person to talk back to Jeff during a challenge. And that's crazy to think that Shane's the one who did it, but he did.
Well, I'm not surprised that Shane talked back to him.
No, I'm just saying I'm surprised that Shane's first person.
Yeah, I'm surprised that no one has done it before. Shane,
he broke the mold.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do as we do every single time. Let's have you arbitrarily rank seasons 6, because 6 is the early seasons you've watched on this rewatch with me. Eventually we'll rewatch 1 through 5. 6 through 12 and 18. We'll throw 18 in there because that's part of our.
I don't think I can.
Let's walk through this. What's your most favorite season? Well, maybe you don't have to rank them now. What's your most favorite?
Pearl Island.
6 through 12 and Tocantins. Pearl Island still?
Mm-hmm.
Least favorite out of all of them. We got Amazon. We have All Stars. We have Vanuatu, Palau, Guatemala, and Tocantins, and Exile Island. Least favorite. Like, if I said, hey, let's rewatch this season, this is the one you'd be like, this is the one I least want to rewatch.
Amazon.
Really? With the men versus women? Wow. Why is that? Your rankings change every time, by the way. I think it's the funniest part of this.
That's why I don't know. I don't know why we keep doing it, because I keep changing it.
Because you change your rankings so consistently, and I love it.
I should just randomly throw out numbers. Like,
I feel like it.
7, 5, 2.
I forgot what podcast we did where we recorded it like 3 times. And you changed it all 3 times we recorded your rankings.
Well, Pearl Islands is still consistently one of my.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're pretty solid on that. Yeah. I think without going back and listening. I don't think in Tocantins I'd rank them, but whatever. Yeah. So what's your least favorite's Amazon, most favorite out of the ones we've watched in this rewatch is Pearl Islands.
Yeah.
Wow. I would disagree with you on Amazon. I feel like that's okay. This is just opinions. It's all opinions at the end of the day. My least favorite, I think, of the ones we've rewatched is surprisingly this one. This one was the one I was like, at times I was like the most bored by.
Well, true. And we just watched it. So obviously you said, hey, let's rewatch Exile Island. I'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, if it was like a year down the line and you're being forced with a gun to your head to rewatch.
Oh my goodness.
Because I know otherwise you'd be like, Wesley, we just watched that season last year. I'm not watching it again. That's what you normally would say. Yeah. But a gun to your head, you'd be like, the one I at least want to rewatch for you is Amazon. For me, it's this season. Amazon, there's fun to be had with Rob, and it's so stupid. It's such a product of its time with its men versus women. And then Yeah, I mean, Pearl Islands is a lot of fun. All Stars has its moments. It's a mess, but at least Rob and Amber fall in love. Vanuatu is brilliant with Chris. Season 10, I think season 10's a harder on a rewatch because you know that Oolong's just going to fall apart. And it's kind of like, well, so the first time you're like rooting for them. You're like, come on, guys, you can win an immunity.
Right.
The second time you're like, oh no, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is a disaster. It's a little harder on a rewatch. Guatemala is a mess, but it's like a fun mess at times.
Yeah, I think Guatemala was actually kind of fun and
Guatemala is surprisingly fun.
has some good characters. I really picked Amazon because the winner is so unenticing.
And Tocantins is just an all-around good season. I know some people downplay it because they don't like Coach, which is fine, but I think Tocantins is a great season. But yeah, this season, I think this is my least favorite. Doesn't mean on paper it's the worst. When I do my season reviews, it's like I try taking everything into account. It's not just solely my opinion on my rewatchability. I try taking like, okay, did they improve? What things did they improve on? What did they do worse on? At the end of the day, it really is the characters that carry the show. This season's kind of like the final 6 are kind of like all the characters of the season that are good, which is great. They made it that far, but I don't know. So yeah, that's where we're at. So next time on Survivor, we get Race Wars.
Survivor Cook Island.
We get a season where the tribes are divided into 4 different races, and this was parody, and it was mocked on television so many times. I'll have to show you after we watch the season, because Mad TV, which was like an SNL competitor at the time, did like a whole thing making fun of Survivor's Race Wars. And I think some sponsors even pulled out.
Wow.
Because of the press around it, not because anything bad happened necessarily with the race war. So, but next season brings so many big characters in that are like long time like staples of the show, like Parvati. We get Yule, we get Ozzy, we get Penner. Candace is not a name that you care about, but it's somebody who appears in Heroes vs. Villains and Blood vs. Water. So, yeah, we get a few names next season that are basically Survivor legends. So
cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we have for Survivor Exile Island. Thank you all for listening. Next time we will stay in chronological order. We will do season 13. So, all right. We'll talk to you all next time. Bye.